This is the first video in a series where we're going to make a calculator. It's probably going to end up being either a 2 or 3 part video. There's a lot of stuff that I couldn't come up with on the spot. It took me a while to think of. So what I did is I wrote this stuff down ahead of time. So I'm going to be reading off a sheet of paper while I'm doing this. I do apologize for that. And there is a lot of tedious typing in this program. So I'm probably going to pause the video a lot and type a whole bunch of stuff and let you see it, and it's just stuff where I'm repeating the same thing over and over and not really very instructive. It's something you can understand pretty easily. So the first thing we need to do is get some imports. We'll have the normal import that I use for almost everything I write. I wish I would just make it part of the normal Java package, but that's not my decision. And we also have two more. These I had to look up on the Java API, which is something that you should be familiar with. Probably talk about that a little bit later on in another video. x.swing.star. Java API is extremely important for programming. And then inside the class we need a few global variables. So we'll say public jframe, which jframe is just like a data type, or a variable type, I guess. Not really sure how you classify it. We'll call that one title. This is where the user can type in info. We'll just call it text box. We need like a box to actually display stuff. Well, we need two. It's kind of weird how Java works. So public jpanel. We'll just call this box. We need a few doubles. Since we have a calculator, we're going to need two numbers, so public double num1 and num2. So that makes both of those a double, just in one line of code. Public char operator. This will be like plus, minus, times, and division. So we'll just call that character operator. And then I need a whole lot of buttons. Public J button. Let's see, I'll need button 1, button 2. I'm gonna go through all the numbers. I've got all the numbers 1 through 9 there. I also need a button for 0. And we also need buttons for adding. We need one for subtract, multiply, divide. We need a button for equals, and we need a button for clear. I believe that's everything. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is start the actual program. We'll create the box that the user is going to be communicating with first. It won't return anything, so we'll say public void create user interface. I think that's a good name for it. Alright, so I need to create a whole bunch of buttons here. First thing I need to do is create the title for this interface. So we'll say title equals new jframe, and then we'll just have the title appear. We'll call our calculator. Let's see, we need a box inside this. We have the title, now we need an actual box, so we'll say box equals new jpanel. We'll set the size of that right now, we'll do that later on. And we need a text box, so we'll say that equals new jtext field. And we'll set the size of that to 12. We could make it bigger, but I already have the dimensions kind of worked out for this, and 12 works fairly well. Then we need to create new buttons, so we'll say B0, actually, yeah, I'll start with 0, that's where counting starts. So B0 equals new J button, and then I tell it what to put on the button, which I just want a 0 on there. We'll say B1 for button 1, so that'll equal new J button. This calculator is going to be a little bit simpler than the one on most computers, but still performs basically the same functions. I'm going to pause the video and finish the rest of this. I've got all the numbers on there. I just need to add like the addition sign, subtraction, division, multiplication, clear, equals, and decimal. So I'll do basically the same thing. The name that we gave to addition was add, so it'll be add equals new J button, and then I just want a plus sign there. I'll continue this with the rest of the operators and all the other signs that we'll have. I've got most of this done. I did realize there are two small errors. Up here I called this J button multiple. I meant to call it multiply. So I'm going to change that and fix this error that's down here. And then I also forgot the decimal, so we'll just add decimal there. And we'll tell it to create a decimal button, so decimal equals new J button. And then we'll just have a decimal there. Alright, so all those buttons are added, but they won't actually show up yet. So we need to make them show up. The way we do that is, actually first we need to we need to make the box show up. So we'll say box.add text box. We'll say box.add equals. This is, so far none of this is showing up, it's just adding stuff to the box. Box.add, and then we need to, this part gets pretty tedious. B0, box.add B1, box.add B2. I'm just going to go in the same order that I have them up here, just so it's easier to keep track of. Alright, at this point all the buttons are added, or at least I think they're all added. And we need to add what's called an action listener. What an action listener does is it just tells you, hey, if a button's been pressed or not. Once a button's been pressed, it does whatever you've told it to do. So for now, we just need to add the action listener. So the way we do that is, well, fairly tedious. Oh, actually, we still need to show the box. Anyways, to show the box and like what's going to show up, we'll say title.getContentPane .add box. We'll need to set its size to something, and I looked at it beforehand, and 175, 300. 175 will be the width of it, like the left to right size. 300 is the top to bottom size. And it's a box, so it's a rectangle shape. So title.setVisible, and I just write true in here, and it's now visible. So if I run this program, actually it won't run because the main never calls it. The main isn't told to do anything at this point. I'll show you that later on. But for now, we just need to add all these action listeners. So button 0.add action listener. This. Do the same thing with, oh, spelled listener wrong. We'll do the same thing with button 2. Button 1 all the way down. And we'll take care of this in just a second. We need to implement something inside the class. Anyways, I'll pause the video for now. Alright, I've got all these action listeners added, and notice there's errors on all of these. I forgot to do something at the very top. Forgot to tell it implements action listener. So public class calculator implements action listener. CLC. Looks like I have a spelling error. Just a second. Okay, just now found the error. I had to pause it for a while to do that. But see here where it's saying calculator is not abstract, does not override abstract method action performed, action event in action listener. That sounds really complicated. It's basically saying I need to keep typing. What's going on? I haven't explained abstract classes enough. Anyways, I'm I'm calling in ActionListener, but ActionListener has to have a specific method written for it with a specific name, and that's what we're going to do in part 2. So, it says the code's not working, but so far it is. We just have to keep on typing. Anyways, it's been, I think, a little over 10 minutes now, so I probably need to stop the video. We'll continue this in part 2 and hopefully get done there. Thanks for watching.